Hi guys, it's the Black Empress here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm coming to you again from the Awoken House of Consciousness. Let me just start by saying how overwhelmed I am by the feedback I've been getting from the last video that I did. I've been struggling for the past few days since I did that video. Like, I've been questioning myself, second guessing myself, wondering if maybe that was the right thing to do. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do another video. But then, because most people have my business number and I haven't been checking it because of all the people that are responding to that ad from the porn site. I haven't been checking my messages. So this morning I was like, let me just check, in case someone has been trying to get a hold of me. And when I opened my phone, there were so many responses from so many people that had watched the video, and it's those responses, it's that feedback that gave me the strength to just decide to do a follow-up and to continue with this. Now, I've been struggling I've been in the social media scene for a while, and I've done many things, and I always knew I had to do like a YouTube channel, but I never could, because every time I tried to record, it felt unnatural, it felt inorganic, it felt forced. So I would do videos and stuff, but I just wouldn't post them because they just, it didn't, there was no flow. And for me, when there's no flow, I don't force, because I'm learning surrender. I'm learning to just be guided and go with the flow, as opposed to doing what I think I should be doing. But then when I did that video, like, I did almost an hour of just speaking my heart, sharing my experiences, and it felt natural for me to do it. It was so, it was flowing, So this morning I felt like, wait a minute, what if that's what my channel is supposed to be about? And when I saw those messages from the different women that said they felt like I was speaking to them, and I opened up some of their eyes, and there were different responses. But for me, that made me feel like, what if for now, that is my purpose? What if for now that is my calling, to just share my life, and hopefully just by me sharing my life, someone's life can be changed, someone's life can be impacted in a positive way. I just want to mention that I'm not doing these videos out of anger or bitterness or malice, and I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm merely sharing my truth, and I need for you guys to understand that I preach nothing but love in my house, because I know some people might be, but this is the father of your children, and how does this impact your children? What happens if one day your children see these videos and stuff? And I'm okay for that to happen, because one of the reasons why I was finally able to bring the relationship to an end is because of my children. And when I started to see how this was negatively impacting them, like on a grand scale, I always knew it had a negative impact on them. But now when my children started to act out and project his behavior back at me, that's when I was like, whoa, these are not the men and women I want to raise, because I've got 2 boys and a girl. So I just decided, no, this has got to come to an end. So yeah, if one day they see these videos, I want them to know that it's okay to speak out. It's okay to speak out if you've been hurt, if you've been ill-treated, if you've been, treated in a way that is less than human and unkind. it's okay to speak out regardless of who the perpetrator is. I want them to know that it's okay to choose them. I even got this tattoo done after the breakup. If you can read, it says, I choose me. Because this is a reminder. Because for 9 years, I chose him and I chose my children over my well-being, over my sanity. And I want my children to know that it's okay to choose them. It's okay to make choices that serve them, even if it doesn't serve anyone else. I want my children to know that you don't have to stay in a toxic and unhappy relationship for whatever reason. So that's why I'm sharing this. And for me, that's the impact that I hope it will have for them. Because even in my house, I don't preach hate. All I preach is love and kindness. And my kids know this because I find them behaving in a way that sort of mimics what their father used to do. And a lot of it is unkind. A lot of it is malicious. And I tell them, guys, you need to act from a place of love and kindness. And they know this. These are one of our values, our most important values as a family. And, but it's tough still. It's tough because my children love this man and they don't see him the same way I see him, even though they were in the front row seat to see and experience what the relationship was like for me. But to them, that's their father. And I will never, ever preach hate to them or disregard him or speak ill of him in front of them. I don't do that. My kids are okay, apart from the fact that they miss their dad, obviously. My daughter has been acting out, and, it's been tough. It's been tough because they want their dad, and I tried to reach out to him several times. Like, I haven't asked him for anything except the one time when I broke my leg and I was in a plaster. So I couldn't drive, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. And at the time, none of my workers could drive either. So, and because of our location, we don't have Uber on this side. And I couldn't so much as go and get bread. I couldn't do a lot of things, Thank God my kids go to school with transport, so at least they continued going to school. But just a lot of the basic things I used to do, I couldn't do anymore after I broke my foot. And that was literally the first and only time I reached out to him since he left. And I asked him, can you please help? Because I can't do anything, even if it means just bringing bread and milk, even if it means just coming and being there for the kids, because I had to be bedridden for some weeks. And he just blue-ticked me. He just blue-ticked me, And throughout all this time, my kids are like, no, phone dad, mom, dad this, dad that. And I can't exactly tell them, guys, your dad doesn't give a damn. He hates me more than he loves you. I can't say that to my kids. I never will. And I never did. So I eventually, despite what my doctors and orthopedics said, I ended up removing the cast before I was fully healed. And I was warned that this will have further complications, maybe not now, but later. And I could cause more damage and this and that. But I had no choice because I had to attend to my kids like I have for years. So, it's just tough. It's just tough because for me, even if, like he says, he will never do anything for the kids financially because according to him, I'm not getting a dime from him. For me, even if he just showed up, because this is someone who worked from home and my kids were used to having him around all the time, and he just made my kids go cold turkey, And I want to try and not be emotional, but it's tough, especially where my kids are concerned. With me, I'm fine, but when it comes to my kids, then it's a bit harder to bear. It gets a bit more emotional for me because for me, I was prepared. Even with everything he had done to me, I was prepared to have to deal with him for the sake of my kids, just so he could remain, he could still be a father to them, even though the relationship with me had ended. And he flat out told me that that wasn't going to happen, you know. So, I mean, knowing the person that I was with for 9 years, I know why he does certain things, and I know that for him it's important to make me feel the way he wants me to feel, even if it's at the cost of his kids. And that's what pains me. Those are the things that make me sad. Those are the things that make me emotional. But I'm trying my best to show up for my kids as best as I can, as best as I know how. Thankfully, God has just brought so many amazing people into our lives. All my workers are men. So it's almost like my kids have gained like 5 more dads, you know. I mean, granted, no one can ever replace their dad, but these guys have just stepped up in a way that to this day I don't understand. They've just stepped up and they've been helping me. They've been there for my kids. My sister is here also, and she's just been a pillar of strength, supporting me and the kids, you know, and we're both trying to mother and father the kids at the same time. And it hasn't been easy, but it's okay because there's peace in the house. I have peace, and I know my kids will be better off for it, you know, in terms of the men and women they will become in the future. And that's what gives me joy, that's what gives me peace, and that's what encourages me to keep on moving on, you know, to keep on doing what I'm doing. What my ex did was merely perpetuating a generational cycle. I don't know where or how this cycle started, where it began, but it's definitely a cycle that was in my family, with the women in my family. I'm not sure how my granddad was to my grandma, so I can't speak on that. But I know what my stepdad was to my mom. And for me, the kind of abuse I suffered at the hands of my ex actually started with my stepdad. And it's so funny how it was his death that ultimately gave me the strength to say, no, this has to end. Because I'm not going to speak about my mom's relationship and my stepdad, because it's not my place to share that. But I can share what my relationship with my stepdad was. He was, he was verbally and emotionally and physically abusive. And I never told my mom. I only started talking about these things just before he died. And I asked my mom for his number. He was ill for a very long time. And I just found myself asking myself, and I never reached out to him. He was in hospital for weeks, more than 12 weeks. And I found myself asking myself, if you've truly forgiven this man, if you've truly healed, this man has been ill for weeks and you haven't once reached out to him. Have you truly healed? Have you truly forgiven him? So I decided, you know what? I'm going to reach out to him. I'm going to check on him. So I asked my mom for his number. And my mom gave me his number. But because of the density of my pain and all the experiences I'd been through with him, it wasn't easy for me to just pick up the phone and check on him. So after I got the number, I started, debating with myself. Do I call him? Do I text him? Do I send a voice message? What do I say? It's been years since I've spoken to this man. How is he going to respond? And on the day that I was going to contact him, I like to sit in the trees and just pray and meditate. And on the day where I was, not even the day, minutes leading up to when I was about to call him, I was sitting in a tree and I'd just taken a walk. There's a bushy area here. I'd just gone there to just pray and meditate. So on my way back, my intention was to call my stepdad and just allow the conversation to flow. So before I did that, I sat in one of the trees and I started having a full-on conversation with him, and telling him how I forgive him. And growing up, I used to despise calling him dad, because I was forced to call him dad, and to me he was anything but a father because of how hurtful the relationship was. So I in this imaginary conversation I was having with him, I even said, can I call you Bra Shakes, or uncle or something, just for my ease of mind. And I was telling him about how, in spite of everything, I loved him because he was literally the only father I ever knew. And, I had a whole full-blown conversation with him. And then while I was still in the tree, I started to get notifications. I think there was no power. So my calls and messages were not coming through. So I'm thinking, as soon as the power comes back, I need to call him, And then the power came back, I think, and then notifications started coming into my phone. And I see that my mom and my sister have been trying to get a hold of me. And then, so eventually my phone rang, and it was my mom. And, I just knew what that call meant even before my mom spoke. And I heard my sister in the background say, does she know? And I was like, what does she mean? Do I know? Do I know what? And turns out that my stepdad had just passed. And then I realized that the conversation I was having with him was real. It was energetic, but it was real. And I think it was because it was literally minutes after that I was told he passed. And I realized that it was probably after that conversation that he was able to transition. He was able to let go. And I'll do another video on what that experience was like the first few hours after his passing, because there's so many lessons to be learned there about forgiveness, about letting go, about acceptance, and spirit guides and things like that. So I'll do a whole nother video going into more in-depth about that. They phoned me and they told me he had just transitioned. He had passed away. I just broke down. I just broke down for the relationship I never had, for what could have been, for so many reasons that I will go into more detail about when I do the video around his passing. But in that moment, I found myself asking myself, I'm like, okay, he's gone now. Granted, after I turned 18, I literally told him, you'll never make me cry another day in my life again. And I literally, I confronted him and I told him, you've abused me for years, You're meant to love and protect me, and this is how you treated me. So I got my chance to stand and speak my truth where he was concerned. But I didn't get the opportunity in the physical to let him know that I forgave him and I love him anyway. And that was not easy for me. That was not an easy place for me to get to. It took me years, but eventually I did. So it was only after his passing that I was like, wait a minute. And then one of the things I've always prayed for and wished for my mom is that she might know and find true love in this lifetime. So many times I tried to fight her battle where my stepdad was concerned. I tried to get her to leave him. I tried to do so many things, to help her see, what kind of a relationship she was in. And she chose to stay. She chose to stay. And after his passing, I found myself asking myself, am I going to do the same thing that my mom did? Am I going to wait for this man to pass away before I can be free of this abuse? One of the messages that came through from the people that were encouraging me and thanking me for doing the video was, how can someone go through that for 9 years? 9 years and no one knew. I'll tell you why no one knew. Not only because I didn't say anything, but also because the abuse was not physical. It was psychological, it was verbal, it was emotional. How do you share that? It basically becomes a matter of his word against mine. His family has hated me from day one. And I never understood why until somehow, thanks to Spirit, I was privy to messages and conversations he used to have with his family. And when I saw of how he spoke about me to them, I was like, man, I can't blame these people for hating me. I mean, I would hate me too if, someone came and told me these things. So, yeah, and it's so funny. So so that's why, and I tried to reach out to his family several times, but because the poison had already been fed to them and they already saw me as the villain that he sees me as, my efforts to try and engage them about his behavior and about how he treated me were futile, because their minds were made up about who they thought I was. So yeah, for 9 years, no one really knew except a few people that experienced it. Like, there are times when he would do what he does in front of people, and it's funny how it's only now that I've broken up that people come to me and they're like, yeah, like that day, when he did this, I was so shocked and I couldn't believe someone could do this. And yet when all this was happening, no one would say anything. And I don't blame anyone for that. I mean, it's quite understandable. But anyway, I found myself asking myself, am I going to wait for this man to die for me to be free? Am I going to wait for this man to die for me to be happy? Am I going to wait for this man to die for me to not worry about what kind of kids my children will become because of his behavior? Because you've got to understand, it doesn't matter what you try to tell or teach kids. Monkey see, monkey do. Children will become who they see you being. It doesn't matter what you try and preach to them, but they will basically become what they see you being. And for me, I was already seeing, a projection of his traits and his personality and his behavior. So I knew the damage had been done. So in that moment, I just told myself, you know what, I need to do something. This cannot go on. And I cannot continue with this and just wait. He's not going to leave. Because so many times when he used to tell me how horrible I am, and what a useless person I was and all the things he used to say, I used to ask him, then let me go. let me go. I would ask him, why are you with me? If I'm so dreadful, if I'm so terrible, why are you here? Why aren't you with me? Why don't you go and find someone better, or someone, who's going to be what you want them to be? And he could never answer me. He could never answer me. Then later on, I realized that even though he felt the way he felt about me, or thought what he thought about me, there's no way he was ever going to leave me, because for him, it was also a matter of no one else is going to have her. So many times, I asked him, listen, you're not willing to be what I need you to be for me. You're not willing to give me what I need you to give me. You're not willing to be the father I need you to be. You're not willing to be the man to me that I need you to be. So let me go. And I knew he would never. That's why even after I tried to break up with him, he would come back. Sometimes forcefully, sometimes through persuasion. Sometimes he would just say, I'm not going anywhere. I remember there was a time when his brother and his sister-in-law were at my place, and he started acting up again. And I asked them, please take him, because we were living in my house at the time, and so I wasn't going to leave. That was my house, and I paid the bond for months. Oh, okay, the bond issue, that's another video I'm going to do, of the financial impact and the repercussions of this relationship and the financial impact that had on me. But I remember begging them, please, I don't want this man anymore. Can you take him? I don't want him in my life. And I begged, and he outrightly told everyone, I'm not going anywhere. And obviously they are trying to say, no, guys, talk about this. And I was like, guys, you don't understand. I'm done. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. Just take him. I want him out of my life. And he was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving this house. I'm not leaving this house. Never mind, he's living rent-free. I'm paying the bond, and times when I don't have the income, the bond is going into arrears. I'm doing most of the things. I'm not saying he never did anything. There's one thing he did without fail, and that was to make sure there was always food in the house. There he didn't make a mistake. But for him, that was just a trauma response to his childhood, where, an unfortunate incident happened in his life, and they suffered. And there were times when they had no food in the house. So he was a feeder. So for him, for his own way of dealing with his trauma, it was important for him to always have food in the house. So food, man, he would spend thousands on food. So that he did, no problem. DSTV, he's a huge Formula One fan. Without fail, on time, he always made sure the DSTV was paid for. Wi-Fi, always made sure the Wi-Fi was paid. But let me dare say anything about the bond. Let me dare say anything about, and initially he also paid fees for his kids. He paid fees for his kids until he just stopped. And then that became my burden, plus my son as well. My firstborn is not his. And with my son, when he came into my life, it's funny how as women we are taken by words and promises. He swamped into my life like a knight in shining armor, and he talked about how he was going to take care of this and take care of that, and I think he paid the bond for some time, and I was like, man, how did I get so lucky? Until he just stopped. Yeah, it's funny how you do these amazing things and then just nip them in a bud, just stop. And he just stopped. And then I woke up when I was 50K later into debt with my son's fees. And then that's when I realized, and this was after I saw messages where he was talking about how this is not my kid. What should I be doing anything for him? And then I was like, man, this guy's not going to do anything for my son. And for me, it wasn't a matter of I expected him to do anything for my child, but he literally came in, with that pitch that he was going to be a father to my son. He was going to do this and that for my son. And I was like, dude, listen, I don't expect you to do anything for my child, but you could have told me before putting me 50K into debt for his school fees. You could have told me, chick, listen, I'm going to take care of my kids. You see what you can do with your child. I would not have had a problem with that because I was fully capable. But I relaxed because my partner convinced me that I had him and he had me. He had my back. He was going to take care of me and my kids. And you know how the story goes, the seduction. Yeah, but anyway, I woke up at some point and realized, nah. So I stopped having any expectations and then just started doing everything for my son, myself. Anyway, so yeah, my stepdad passed and I was like, nah, man, this is not a way to live. I've got to do something about this. And so it took a while before my stepdad's body was brought back to Africa and before we could have the burial and all that. And I left the country for his burial. And when I left the country, he hadn't been speaking to me for 2 weeks. When I left, he wasn't speaking to me. When I left to go and bury my stepdad, he wasn't speaking to me. And when I came back, he still wasn't speaking to me. And, this, oh, there you go. Yeah. So, the burial was tough. And when I do the video on his passing, I'll go more into detail about how it was for me, the burial, going to his family and things like that. But when I came back, he still wasn't speaking to me. And so granted, I'm still emotional. And while I was away, just seeing my mom and her grief and watching at how much my mom had aged and how, this person was, he was all sorts to her. And yet, right up to the end, my mom was literally the only person that was there for him. And how much that had aged her. And when I saw how sad my mom was, and for me, it was just like, nah, I don't want that to be my story. I don't want that to be my life. Granted, my mom chose to stay, and as much as that hurt me, I found a way to accept and respect that. But I was determined that that wasn't going to be me, because I realized that, man, this is a cycle. Like, why am I going through the same things that my mom went through? And if I don't nip this in a bud, my daughter is going to go through the same things. I've got a girl child. What am I teaching her? I'm teaching her that it's okay to be with someone who is unkind and hateful and angry towards you all the time. Let me just stress that I only ever saw him like this in the 9 years to me. He wasn't like this to anyone else. And there are times where he would break down and feel remorseful and say, I'm sorry that I take out my anger on you. And I would always ask him, but why do you do it? Why should I always be at the end of the suffering end of your anger and of your whatever it is, you're dealing with? And he would apologize, as all abusers do, and still continue with his behavior and still continue to treat me that way. So abuse comes in so many forms, it comes in so many forms. And when it's just, and I think I normalized it because, well, that's how my stepdad treated me for a long time. I think I already had the coping mechanisms of being around angry, hateful men. And yeah, so I think I normalized his behavior and I found ways to cope in spite of it. What I didn't realize was that the damage continued. In as much as I thought I was okay because I always felt or thought that I'm handling this or this is handled, but the damage continued, the pain continued. So after seeing my mom the way she was, and how sad, and I was sad at how my mom truly loved him. You know, she really, really loved him. And that was the difference between her relationship and mine, was that she actually loved my stepdad, you know. But for me, I stopped loving my ex a long time ago, like years ago actually, because I had a baby. I had a baby, his baby. And when I had the baby, I tore. And then, so I was in excruciating pain. I tore and I had stitches and stuff. And, you know, all my children I've had through natural birth. And I was in excruciating pain. Excruciating pain. And I remember, I can't remember why, I have home births. I had home births with my kids. So I was in excruciating pain. And I asked him to go and give me painkillers. I asked him to go and give me painkillers. And he was gone the whole day. And when he came back, he didn't bring the painkillers. And you know what he said to me? There were no painkillers. Yeah. He's like, I went to the shop, there were no painkillers. And because I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. I mean, I just had a natural birth and tore. I couldn't get the painkillers. I think eventually, I asked someone who was coming to see the baby to bring me painkillers. That's how I eventually got painkillers. But yeah. So many things happened over such a long period of time that eventually my heart just shut down. That was the only way I could be okay. Because initially, I used to get so hurt and so heartbroken. I remember I was suicidal at some point because I couldn't understand why he was treating me the way he was, why he was putting me through the way he was, and I was suicidal. There was a time where I just wanted it all to end. I just wanted it all to end. And then I was like, well, if I end it, then what happens to my kids? If I end my life, what happens to my kids? Do I leave this man to raise my kids? So there and then I decided I will feel nothing for him. I will feel nothing for him. If I don't feel anything for him, he can't hurt me. Here comes Xavier. I promise you, every time he knows when I cry. He knows when I cry. Hey, Xavier. And every time it's funny how when I do these videos and I get emotional, he just comes. There he goes. Wanting to say, Xavier is such a big dog, eh? It's okay, Baba, I'm fine. I'm fine. Xavier, you're too big. No, Xavier. It's okay. It's okay. I'm okay. Like he's literally trying to hug me. He's sleeping on me now. But yeah, guys, this is the love that I have. That's why I say that I'll be okay. I'm surrounded with love. I'm surrounded with love, so I'm gonna be okay. But yeah, hey, Safe, you can go now. I'm gonna be okay. Or you just want to chill here? Can you go? Good boy. Oh, you're going to sit there and make sure I'm okay? All right. Yeah, so I thought, man, I can't end my life. What happens to my kids if I do? Because I would do most things for my kids anyway, because he wouldn't. It's not like he used to make money, but the one thing I can say, like those things I mentioned, that's where I saw the money go. But you know, when it comes to things that counted, I could never understand why he couldn't help me out. So I was like, no, man, I can't end my life because of this man. So I simply shut down. So yeah, so I was talking about how my mom actually loved my stepdad and she was with him in spite of the way he treated her. She was with him right up to the end. She used to go to the hospital every day after work, tired, exhausted. And I remember thinking, Mom, you are doing too much. I know you want to take care of him and make sure he's okay, but you need to take care of you too. And she would be like, no, Tanya, I have to, if I don't go, who's going to go? I need to go, And I know she did it because she loved him, but that's just my mom. My mom loves unapologetically, unconditionally. And if my mom loves you, like, she just loves you to death. So anyway, this is tough. This is so tough. I'm not an emotional person. I've actually struggled because I went through a time where I couldn't cry anymore. I couldn't cry. I used to beg my ancestors, beg my spirit guides, beg my angels, guys. I just want to cry because I know if I can just cry, I'll feel better. And I couldn't. It's only now that I'm healing, that I'm learning how to express my emotions. I'm allowing myself to feel so I can cry. I had stopped allowing myself to feel. Like I would just shut down. I would shut down my emotions. That's the only way I knew I could be all right. That's the only way I could be okay. Because if my emotions are shut down, your words can't hurt me. You can't touch me if I'm shut down. So only now I'm learning to open up and allowing myself to feel. And yeah, I come back from the funeral, we bury my stepdad, and he's still not talking to me. And then, for me, I was like, nah, man, this, if anything, this just confirms, like, what kind of a life is this? What kind of a relationship is this? How do I go and bury the only father figure I knew? And you don't even ask me, are you okay? How did the funeral go? And things like that. So I was like, nah, this is not working. So I sent him a message, and I was like, because he wasn't talking to me, so I sent him a message. And when he didn't talk to me, he would have this cold energy that you wouldn't dare try to have he would only have a conversation with you when he was ready to. Like he could go for weeks or months sometimes. There was a time we went for months without talking to me, living in the same house, passing me in the passage. And he just wouldn't talk to me, and he would be so cold. And there are times when I was trying to do better, and I'd be like, even if he's not talking to me, let me go and talk to him. Let me go and be nice to him. You know how us women be, and you're like, how a man will cheat and do funny things and not come home. And then, the next day when he comes home, you're like, Shewe, how are you? And then you make him a meal, and, in spite of the fact that he didn't sleep at home or things like that. So I tried to use that approach, and I'm like, let me just be nice to him. And the rejection he would slap me with. He would be like, just get away from me. Wouldn't even give me a chance. And when I'll try to speak, he'll just be like, shut up. Just shut up. Shut up and get away from here. He would say a lot more, but I don't like to dwell on that, and I don't want to go into it. Doesn't serve a purpose, but I think you guys get the picture. So I was like, let me just text him. So I texted him, and I'm like, I'm not happy, and clearly you are not either. So I think it's time we went our separate ways, because this is not the life I want for myself. And I asked him to leave, I asked him to leave. And I told him, that obviously maybe he wasn't anticipating this and he might need time to get his shit together, and I was okay with that. But I needed him to at least let me know when I can expect him to leave, because I wasn't about to leave this open-ended and have him be here indefinitely when I've asked him to leave. Because many times I'd ask him to leave and he'd say he's leaving and he just never would. But this time around, even before I asked him to leave, I went to my ancestors and had a whole conversation. And for the first time in 9 years, they didn't tell me go back and forgive. They actually said, yeah, you're right, he needs to leave. And the reason why they said yes was because finally, I was hoping this video would be about that, about how I finally ended the karmic cycle. But it just took a life of its own, and it took its own turn and ended up being what I hadn't planned or anticipated. So I guess I still have to do another video where I'm not being emotional and where I'm not, revisiting the experiences I had with him. So even before I do these videos, I pray, I partner, I speak to my angels, my ancestors, my spirit guides, and I always ask them to lead. So I guess for whatever reason, they chose for this to go in the manner that it did. So I'm still going to do another video where I'm not so emotional, if that's even possible, where I'm more teaching the lessons that I learned, where I realized that this was just a cycle, and someone, all the women in my ancestry, in my bloodline, that this affected, someone had to just take a stand and says it ends with me. So anyway, I had asked him to leave many times and he just didn't. But now when I went to my ancestors, because I had finally come to the end of this karmic cycle, my ancestors were like, yes. And for me, one thing I live and preach is that no man is neither foe or friend, but all men a teacher. That's why I'm not angry or bitter or malicious towards him, because for me, he was probably the best teacher I ever had. I learned so much. I'll do another video where I share the things I learned from being in an abusive relationship, and those things have allowed me to grow. Those things have allowed me to evolve. Some of those things helped me heal, because I started to see myself in a light that I otherwise wouldn't have seen myself had I not been in an abusive relationship. So I'm going to share all of that at some point. But for now, I just want to wrap this video up as I just share how it eventually ended. So I asked him, yeah, you need to leave. And, true to form, my phone rang. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere, like as usual. And I'm like, ancestors, I thought you said, it was right this time and it would be okay. What does he mean he's not leaving? I'm done, I'm tired. Auntie Charlie. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to sit down and talk about this. And I'm like, talk about this? Nigga, you ain't spoken to me in 3 weeks. I went to bury my stepdad and came back, and you still weren't speaking to me. Now that I say I'm done, now that I ask you to leave, now that I say it's over, you want to talk? Nah. He's like, well, I ain't going anywhere. You're going to have to call the cops or whatever, but I'm not leaving. And I'm like, you know what, actually? If that's what it comes to, then so be it. If I have to call the cops for you to leave, I will do that. Because before, when he would just say, I'm not leaving, I'm not going anywhere, I would just crawl back into my shell and say, oh, well, guess I'm stuck. Guess I'm stuck. That was my reality. Strong, confident, outspoken, frank Tanya, yes. I would just crawl into my shell and let him do his thing. But this time I was so determined, and I was so determined. I had decided that, nah, enough. This ends with me. I don't end this now. My daughter, 20, 30 years later, is going to be in the exact same position. So I've got to end this now. So anyway, I'm like, so I leave it at that. And then, so my sister and I were out shopping when this conversation happened. So we're driving back home. And then as we're driving back home, like when we get to the road just before our gate, we see him driving in the opposite direction, and the car he's driving is packed. And I'm like, where is he going and why is there so much stuff in the car? And I'm like, well, who knows, No, I saw the lawnmower, because it was a sedan. So I saw the lawnmower, I saw our garden equipment, and things like that. So I was like, it didn't register at the time, like, why is the car so full? Why is he carrying those things, And then I just left it at that. And then as we drive in, the kids run to me and they're like, Mom, Dad is gone. And he says we're never going to see him again. And I'm like, what? Because I was thinking, you'd need like a month or whatever, to put some money together, get his own place and things like that. So for him to leave so abruptly, and after the conversation we just had where he was like, nah, I'm not going anyway. I was so confused. But then again, that's how it was. Like, he would do the craziest things that never made sense to me. And I'm like, okay, fine. You've chosen to leave, thank God. But why say to the kids they'll never see you again? You are their father. You are breaking up with me, not with them. So why should the kids never see you again? But anyway, I just knew that was him. And I was hoping, maybe if he dealt with his anger or whatever, at some point he would come around and still show up for the kids and, still be in their lives. But it's been months now, and yeah, he sort of kept his word. So yeah, eventually that's how he left. So when he left, he started texting my mom, telling her all sorts of things. And, he told everyone who cared to listen that I kicked him out. Because we were coming from burying my stepdad, my sisters were here with me. The one is a digital nomad and she lives around the world, and the other lives in the UK. So the one came and she was in transit to go back to the UK, but she just wanted to spend time with me and the kids before she left. And the other one was here because she wanted to help me get, the Awoken House of Consciousness ready. So he told people that my sisters packed up all his things and asked him, dude, what are you still doing here? When are you leaving? Can you leave? And, yeah. So that's what he told people, and a whole load of other things as well. So I didn't tell my mom what had happened. He did. So my mom phones me, she's texting me, she's frantic. She's like, what the hell have you done? No, this is not happening, And for weeks, my mom was insisting, no, he's got to come back and you've got to work things out. And I couldn't understand, Mom, you know what this relationship has been like for me. But because of how two-faced he could be, my mom was convinced that this man was the best thing to happen to me. Eventually, everyone was. And eventually, I too was convinced that, this man was the best thing that ever happened to me. So my mom, everyone, my relatives, they're like, hey, what did you do to this man? This man, you kicked him out. And I was like, I kicked him out? So with me, I'm not one to defend myself and go on and no, but this happened. And I was like, you know what? Whatever he told you, it's true. But I'm not taking him back. I mean, I was so relieved that after 9 years, he actually left. I was like, man, I'm not getting this chance again. I am not getting this chance again. I am not playing with this chance. I don't care what anyone thinks. This man is not coming back into my life. And for weeks, my mom was like, so eventually when my mom came and, started sharing with me the things he said, I was like, damn, talk about a master manipulator. My mom was convinced I was in the wrong. And somehow, she was able to soften her and make her forget all the things I had shared and told her about this relationship. So I eventually sat my mom down. And there are many things I didn't tell my mom, obviously, to protect her and to protect him, because I knew that if I told my mom everything, she'd never look at him the same. And it's because of that, and things like that, that I used to go, initially, I would go to his family about the issues I had with him. Because I knew, no matter what I say, his family will always love him. But eventually when I realized that, they can't be bothered, that's when I started going to my mom. But then again, I would filter, the information I would give her just to protect him. So eventually I sat my mom down when she came and I told her everything. And my mom was crushed. And she couldn't believe how she had believed everything he said, how she had insisted on me taking him back. And she finally saw my pain. She finally saw me. So yeah, to answer the question of the person that asked me, how could this have been going on for 9 years and no one saw? That's how it happened. That's how it happened. So yeah, to wrap this up, I just want to say that abuse is not just physical, but abuse is abuse. Doesn't matter if it's emotional, if it's psychological, if it's verbal, abuse is abuse. And sometimes you are made to feel like it's your fault you are being treated like that. I want you to know that there's no such thing. There's nothing you can ever do for you to deserve for someone to ill-treat you, for someone to torment you psychologically for days, for months, for weeks. There's nothing you can ever do to deserve that. There's nothing you can ever do to justify someone laying their hands on you. Because the one constant for me was being told, you made me do this. You made me the man that I am. You make me speak like this. You make me react in this way. I was told that all the time. And then eventually, as I grew and as I evolved in the relationship, I started to fight back and say, no, I didn't make you anything. Don't give me that kind of power. I'm not your God. I can't make you a hateful person. I can't make you bitter. I can't make you mistreat me. There's no such thing. Take responsibility for your actions. And needless to say, that would be met with a lot of agitation. That would result in more verbal abuse and all sorts of other kinds of abuse. And for him, like I said, he wasn't all bad. There were times when he was amazing. There were times when he was loving. But without fail, should I do or say or challenge him in a way that he felt I shouldn't, all of that would be taken away instantly. Listen, you're only a good student as long as you do 1, 2, 3. And the moment you stop doing what I want you to do, being who I want you to be, behaving the way I want you to be, you will suffer the consequences. So he would withhold love, he would withhold affection. That's another form of abuse as well. Financially, he just wouldn't do anything. And it's funny how I'd always come across these messages like where he would tell people that I ain't doing shit for her son. And with the bond, he said, I'm not going to pay this bond. It's not my house. And I'll be like, wait a minute. It's not your house, but you live here and you are working from here. Rent free. Rent free. Yo, I wish I had a girlfriend like me who would do everything for me. You know? Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm just glad it's over. And like I was saying, guys, there's nothing you can do that warrants anyone treating you in that way. And the reason why I'm sharing this is so that no one has to stay in a relationship like that for 9 years, without realizing what is really happening. Because for me, one of the reasons I stayed was I at the time, I wasn't sure. Am I being abused? I just knew he was mean and unkind. But he was just mean and unkind to me. He wasn't like that with everybody else. With everybody else, he taught me, consideration for others. He taught me humility. He taught me how to treat other people, how to treat strangers. I learned all those lessons from him because of how nice and how thoughtful and how amazing he was to strangers. And I learned that from him, and that's a lesson I will take away with me. But to me, it was always something else. It was always something else. So I would always question, am I really being, like, is it that bad? Or, things like that. So, guys, if you're not happy, only you can do something about it. Doesn't matter what people think about this person or what other people feel about this person. Your experience, your feelings are what matter. So if you feel like you're not being treated right, you most probably are not being treated right. If you feel like you're being abused, you most probably are. Don't be like me and let it take you 9 years before you decide to do something about it. Don't be like me. Do better. So yeah, anyway, let me leave it here. Hopefully I'll be back again soon with another video. And hopefully I can share on the learnings from this experience, and as opposed to just reliving and going through all the hurt and pain. But needless to say, I hope this helps someone. I hope this is a light bulb moment for someone, and I hope this has a positive impact in someone's life. Please subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone you think might benefit from it. And you can share your experiences in the comment section as well. Let's talk about this, guys. Let's break the silence. Let's share our experiences so that the people that are in this situation know that they are not alone. Nithandwa ndim, guys. Tamako, of course.